Chapter 1. First Contact. David Wright leaned back in his chair, the soft hum of the observatory's systems a constant companion through the night. Screens flickered in the dim light, charts and graphs displaying the dance of distant celestial bodies. It was late, and the solitude suited him. It gave him time to think, to explore the heavens undisturbed. The radio telescope, stationed in a remote part of Chile, was his outpost, his window to the universe. As the hours ticked by, David's routine check of the frequencies suddenly captured an anomaly, a signal, distinct and patterned, unlike anything he'd encountered before. "Eva, come take a look at this," David called out, not taking his eyes off the screen. Eva Martinez, his colleague and a seasoned astrophysicist, walked over, her interest piqued. "What have you got?" Eva asked, peering over his shoulder. "Look at this waveform. It doesn't match any known cosmic or terrestrial source. It's structured, repeating. What do you think?" David's voice trembled with excitement. Eva studied the data, her brow furrowed. "It's impressive," she admitted. "It could be a breakthrough, David. Have you checked the coordinates?" "Yeah. It's coming from that uncharted system we catalogued last month. I think we should redirect the array, get a clearer signal." The two worked in tandem, adjusting the equipment, refining the telescope's focus. As the signal strengthened, David felt a rush of adrenaline. This was it, the moment every astronomer dreamed of. "Do you think it's them? Extraterrestrial intelligence?" Eva asked, a cautious hope in her tone. "I don't know, but I'm going to find out." David was resolute. He input a series of commands, locking the coordinates and enhancing the signal capture. Hours passed as they monitored and recorded the incoming signals, which seemed to form a deliberate pattern. The implication was clear. Someone, or something, was trying to communicate. "This is significant, Eva. We need to report this, but first, let's gather as much data as we can." "We need undeniable proof," David suggested, knowing the scrutiny that would follow any claim of this magnitude. Eva nodded, her eyes still fixed on the data streaming across the screen. "I'll start drafting our initial findings." This could change everything, David. As dawn approached, the first rays of sunlight began to illuminate the observatory. David stood, stretching his limbs after a night of little movement. He walked over to the large window, gazing out at the sky that had just begun to brighten. This could be the beginning of a new chapter for humanity. He mused aloud, not expecting a response. Eva joined him, her expression thoughtful. "Or a new chapter for us, personally. Imagine being part of the team that confirmed extraterrestrial life." David smiled, his fatigue overshadowed by his enthusiasm. "Let's make sure our names are on that chapter." Their shared excitement was palpable as they prepared for another round of observations. The mystery of the signal beckoned, promising answers and, perhaps, a connection to a world beyond their own. As they resumed their work, the signal continued to beep, a cosmic whisper across the vast expanse of space, drawing them closer to the unknown. Chapter 2. The Arrival. The spacecraft hummed gently as it descended through the atmosphere of the uncharted planet. David Wright sat strapped in his seat, eyes fixed on the viewscreen as the landscape below came into sharp focus. Beside him, his co-pilot and good friend, Michael Hahn, operated the controls with practiced ease. "Landing sequence is green across the board," Michael reported, his voice calm despite the significance of their mission. David nodded, unable to suppress his excitement. "Can't believe we're actually doing this, Mike. What do you think we'll find down there?" Michael chuckled. "Best case, new friends with incredible tech. Worst case, a good story for the grandkids." As the ship touched down on a grassy plain, the two men quickly prepared for their first venture outside. They donned their protective suits and checked each other's gear, knowing the importance of caution on an alien world. "Ready to make history?" Michael asked as he opened the airlock. "After you, pioneer," David replied with a grin. Stepping onto the alien soil, David felt a thrill run through him. The air was breathable, a fortunate fact that had made their mission possible. The landscape was breathtaking, vivid purple grass under a sky tinged with orange hues, mountains in the distance casting long shadows. They began their exploration, carefully documenting every plant, rock, and soil type they encountered. Their sensors pinged continuously, relaying data back to the ship. As they rounded a particularly dense thicket, David stopped short. Ahead of them, a figure stood, a being unlike any human, with luminescent skin and eyes that seemed to reflect the starry sky. "Hello," David called out tentatively, heart pounding in his chest. The universal translator attached to his suit whirred as it processed his words. The alien tilted its head, studying them with a quiet curiosity before replying in a melodious voice, "Welcome, travelers from afar. I'm David, and this is Michael. We come in peace," David introduced, stepping forward slowly. "I am Ilyara," the alien responded. "You have traveled a great distance to reach us. Why have you come?" David glanced at Michael, who nodded, giving him the go-ahead to explain. "We received your signal. It reached us across the stars, and we came seeking knowledge, hoping to learn from you and perhaps share a little about ourselves." Ilyara smiled, a simple gesture, yet it filled David with relief. "Curiosity is the foundation of progress. Come, let me show you our world." For the next several hours, Ilyara guided them through the area, explaining the ecosystem and the society that thrived there. David and Michael listened intently, recording everything. The peacefulness of the world around them was almost surreal. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the land, Ilyara invited them to her community. The buildings were integrated seamlessly into the environment, technology and nature intertwined in ways David had never imagined. "Your world is beautiful, Ilyara. It's unlike anything we've ever seen," Michael said, genuinely impressed. "We strive to live in harmony with our planet," Ilyara explained. "But enough about us for now. Tell me about Earth." Gathering around a fire that evening, under the light of 2 moons, David and Michael shared stories of Earth, the oceans, the mountains, the cities, and the people. Ilyara listened with rapt attention, her fascination evident. As the fire crackled, the boundaries between the stars seemed to blur, the differences between them insignificant compared to the shared wonder of discovery. Here, beneath alien skies, a bridge was being built, one story at a time. Chapter 3: Learning to Communicate. The morning sun cast a warm glow over Ilyara's village as David and Michael prepared for a day dedicated to cultural exchange. The alien landscape buzzed with life, the air vibrating with the calls of unseen creatures. Ilyara greeted them at the entrance of her dwelling, a structure as intriguing in its design as its maker. "Good morning, David, Michael. Today, we'll learn from each other. What would you like to start with?" Ilyara's voice was calm, her demeanor welcoming. David exchanged a glance with Michael, who shrugged slightly. "Perhaps you could teach us more about your technology? We're particularly interested in how you've achieved such harmony with your environment," David suggested. "Very well. Follow me," Ilyara said, leading them to a large building at the center of the village. Inside, the room was lined with panels and devices that seemed to pulsate with energy. "This is our control center. From here, we manage the climate, the water supply, and more. Our technology is designed to sustain rather than dominate." Michael, ever the engineer, was fascinated. "How do you handle waste and recycling?" he asked, peering closely at a panel showing detailed environmental stats. Ilyara activated the panel, and it lit up with diagrams and flows of processes. Everything is recycled here. Nothing is wasted. Let me show you. She explained their systems, pointing out how each element worked in a closed loop, supporting the planet's ecosystem. As the morning progressed, David took notes while Michael asked questions, both deeply engrossed in learning. After a thorough tour, they sat down with Ilyara to share something of their own. "Now, let us teach you something about human technology," David started, pulling out a portable projector. He set it up to display images of Earth, cities, oceans, forests, and deserts. Ilyara watched intently as images flicked across the makeshift screen. "Your world has such diverse environments. How do you manage your resources?" "It's a challenge," Michael admitted. "We have technologies for clean energy, like solar and wind power, but we still struggle with pollution and waste. It's not as integrated as your systems." The discussion turned to deeper topics, like governance and societal issues. Ilyara listened, her expression thoughtful, occasionally asking pointed questions that made David and Michael consider things they'd taken for granted about their own world. "In some ways, we are very different," Ilyara remarked. "But in our hearts, we seek the same things: peace, sustainability, understanding." "True," David agreed. "It's amazing how much we can learn from each other, despite coming from different corners of the galaxy." The afternoon was spent exchanging knowledge about literature, music, and art. Ilyara shared some of their musical instruments, complex devices that produced ethereal sounds. Michael tried his hand at playing one, resulting in a series of humorous notes that made everyone laugh. "Music might be the true universal language," Michael joked, handing the instrument back to Ilyara. As the day ended, they gathered once more under the stars, which seemed brighter, closer. David felt a profound sense of connection, not just to Ilyara and her world, but to the universe at large. "We've shared knowledge and laughter today," Ilyara said as they watched the sky. "May this be the foundation of a lasting friendship between our peoples." David nodded, feeling the weight and the wonder of her words. "I believe it will be, Ilyara. There's so much more we can learn from each other. Tomorrow, let's explore your culture further." With a night of peaceful rest ahead and the promise of another day of discovery, they retired to their quarters, minds full of ideas and hearts full of newfound respect and friendship. The bridge they were building was becoming stronger with every shared word and every shared laugh. Chapter 4. Exploring the World. David and Michael met Ilyara at the edge of the village as the sun rose, painting the sky with shades of gold and orange. Today they were to explore the natural world of Ilyara's planet, a chance to see the ecosystems they had only discussed so far. "Good morning," Ilyara greeted, holding a device that resembled a large tablet. "Today, I will show you some of the unique flora and fauna of our world. I believe you will find it quite fascinating." David adjusted his pack, ensuring he had all his recording equipment. "We're ready. Lead the way, Ilyara." As they walked through the wilderness, Ilyara pointed out various plants, explaining their uses. "This is a farren bush," she said, gesturing to a plant with bright red leaves. "Its leaves can be brewed into a tea that helps with concentration." Michael, intrigued, took a sample of the leaves, careful to use gloves. "Does it have caffeine or something similar?" "Not caffeine, but a compound unique to our ecosystem. It's very gentle," Ilyara explained. They continued deeper into the wilderness, reaching a clearing where the real show began. A herd of creatures, similar in size to deer but with luminous fur that seemed to ripple with colors, grazed peacefully. "These are luminids," Ilyara stated, watching David's and Michael's reactions. David was busy filming, his camera focused on the creatures. "They're beautiful," he murmured, entranced by the shifting colors. They use the colors to communicate, Ilyara added. Each ripple and wave is part of an intricate language. Michael jotted down notes, his scientific curiosity piqued. Is it just visual communication, or do they use sounds as well? They do make sounds, but their primary language is visual. It's quite advanced, Ilyara responded. The trio spent the morning documenting various species, Ilyara explaining, David filming, and Michael taking samples and notes. The collaboration was seamless, each person contributing their expertise. By midday, they reached a river that shimmered with what looked like tiny stars. This river, Ilyara began as they approached the bank, is filled with microorganisms that bioluminesce. It's safe to touch. David reached out, letting the water run over his hand, watching it glow around his fingers. It's like liquid light, he said, awestruck. Your people would find this place very therapeutic, Michael noted, looking around at the peaceful scenery. Many come here to reflect and relax, Ilyara agreed. It's one of our natural sanctuaries. They set up a temporary camp by the river, eating lunch while discussing the applications of bioluminescent technology. Michael was especially interested in how such natural phenomena could be integrated into human technology without harming the environment. As they packed up to return to the village, David felt a deep sense of gratitude. Thank you, Ilyara, for sharing your world with us. It's not just the knowledge, but the perspective that we value. Ilyara smiled. And we are grateful to learn about Earth. You bring us stories of a world we may never see but feel closer to through your eyes. The walk back was filled with lighter conversations about hobbies and interests. David shared stories of his hiking trips on Earth, while Michael discussed his passion for engineering and innovation. As they neared the village, the sun was setting, casting long shadows and bathing the land in a soft, golden light. The day had been one of discovery and understanding, not just of a new world, but of each other as companions in this grand adventure of knowledge-sharing. I look forward to tomorrow, Ilyara said as they parted ways at the village's edge. There is much more to show you. David and Michael returned to their quarters, their minds full of ideas and their cameras full of footage. The experiences of the day had not only broadened their scientific horizons, but had deepened their appreciation for the beauty and complexity of life, wherever it may be found. Chapter 5. Beneath Starlit Paths. As evening approached, Ilyara led David and Michael to a remote part of the planet that was seldom visited by anyone outside her community. The path wound through dense foliage, opening suddenly onto a vast plain where the grass shimmered under the twilight sky. This place is called the Vale of Shadows, but don't let the name fool you, Ilyara explained with a smile. It's one of the most magical spots when the stars come out. David set up his camera equipment, preparing to capture the night sky, while Michael looked around, absorbing the serene atmosphere. Why is it called the Vale of Shadows? Michael asked, curiosity piqued by the contrasting name. Ilyara gestured to the towering cliffs surrounding the plain. In daylight, these cliffs cast long shadows across the vale. But at night, it's a different story. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the stars began to appear, each one seemingly brighter and clearer than any they had seen from Earth. The cliffs reflected the starlight, creating a mesmerizing display of light and shadow. It's breathtaking, David said, his voice low in awe as he adjusted his lens. Ilyara led them to the center of the vale, where the grass was softest. Here, beneath the starlit paths, our ancestors believed that the veil between worlds was thinnest. They came here to think, to dream, and to love. Michael sat down, looking up at the sky. It feels like you could reach out and touch the stars. That's the beauty of it, Ilyara agreed. It makes you realize how vast the universe is, and yet, how connected everything is. The three of them lay back to watch the sky as Ilyara began to tell stories of her people, tales of explorers and philosophers who had shaped her civilization's understanding of the cosmos. David turned his head to look at Ilyara, the starlight reflecting in her eyes. "Your stories are fascinating. They make me think about how much humans and your people have in common, despite our differences." Ilyara smiled, turning to face him. "I think so too, David. Sometimes it takes just a few shared stories under the stars to realize that." Feeling a connection that went beyond mere friendship, David reached out his hand to touch Ilyara's. She didn't pull away. Instead, she welcomed his gesture, intertwining her fingers with his. Michael, noticing the subtle exchange, gave a small chuckle. "I'll leave you two to the starlight. I think I saw a photogenic rock formation back there that needs exploring." With Michael tactfully stepping away, David and Ilyara were left alone under the vast, star-filled sky. The air between them was charged with an unspoken understanding, and as they turned to face each other, David leaned in closer. "Do you feel it too?" he asked softly, the distance between them closing. "Yes," Ilyara whispered back just before their lips met in a gentle, exploratory kiss. The kiss deepened, driven by the connection that had been building between them. It was a moment of pure harmony, matched only by the beauty of the starlit sky above them. After a while, they pulled apart, their eyes locked, communicating more than words could. They lay back down, side by side, hands still entwined, watching the stars. "Tonight is a night for new beginnings," Ilyara said, her voice full of wonder. "And for new understandings," David added, his heart full. As the night deepened, they continued to talk, share stories, and enjoy the peacefulness of the Veil of Shadows. Beneath the paths of starlight, a bond had formed, a bond that promised the dawn of a profound connection. Chapter 6. A Bond Deepens. The following morning, David and Ilyara met early, both still feeling the afterglow of the previous night's revelations under the stars. They found Michael at a nearby stream, collecting water samples, his equipment spread out on the bank. "Morning, you two," Michael greeted them, a knowing grin on his face. "Sleep well." David chuckled, his eyes briefly meeting Ilyara's. "Better than ever," he replied, feeling a newfound energy. "Good, because today I thought we'd analyze these samples. But first, breakfast," Michael suggested, packing up his vials. As they ate, the conversation was light, filled with laughter and teasing. Yet, David and Ilyara shared occasional, meaningful glances, their connection unspoken but unmistakable. After breakfast, Michael set up a makeshift lab near their campsite. "Ilyara, could you explain some of these compounds? This one here is particularly unusual," he said, pointing to a readout on his portable analyzer. "Certainly," Ilyara replied, leaning over to examine the data. "That's a bioluminescent enzyme unique to our rivers. It's what gives the water its glow at night." Fascinated, Michael took notes while Ilyara provided detailed explanations. David, meanwhile, documented everything on camera, ensuring they captured every part of their scientific exchange. "Your understanding of biochemistry is impressive," Michael commented, genuinely impressed. "Human science could learn a lot from your methods." "I hope one day our peoples can collaborate more closely," Ilyara said, her tone hopeful. "There is much we can achieve together." The day progressed with more sampling and discussions about potential collaborative projects. David and Ilyara occasionally teamed up, collecting specimens while sharing personal stories and aspirations. In the afternoon, Ilyara took them to a grove where the trees seemed to communicate through subtle vibrations. These trees can send signals to each other through their root systems. "It's their way of sharing resources and warning about threats," she explained. "Like a natural internet," David remarked, amazed. "Exactly," Ilyara smiled. We've learned to tap into this network for environmental monitoring without ever harming the trees. Michael, always eager for a practical demonstration, asked, "Could we see how you interface with it?" Of course, Ilyara agreed, leading them to a nearby station that was seamlessly integrated into the environment. She showed them how her people used non-invasive technology to engage with the tree network, enhancing their understanding of the ecosystem's health. As the sun began to set, they returned to the campsite, their minds buzzing with new knowledge and ideas. Dinner was a lively affair, with discussions about the future and the potential for interspecies cooperation. After the meal, Ilyara looked at David with a gentle expression. "Would you like to take a walk? There's something I'd like to show you." David agreed, and they strolled away from the camp, leaving Michael to his notes. They walked in comfortable silence until they reached a small hill overlooking the valley. "I wanted you to see this," Ilyara said as they sat down. Below them, the valley was bathed in the light of the two moons, casting a surreal glow over the landscape. "It's beautiful," David murmured, his voice soft. Ilyara nodded, then turned to face him. "David, these past days have been more meaningful to me than you can imagine. Your presence here has changed many things for me." David took her hand, his heart full. "For me too, Ilyara. I've never felt this way about anyone." They leaned closer, sharing another kiss, this one charged with the promise of what was to come. It was a perfect moment, frozen in time, as they sat together beneath the moonlit sky, the stars above witness to their burgeoning love. Chapter 7. Challenge of Choices. The following day brought a sudden shift that neither David nor Ilyara had anticipated. Early in the morning, as the first light painted the horizon, David received a transmission from Earth, a message urgent and unequivocal in its directive. He was to return immediately, as the discovery of extraterrestrial life had stirred a myriad of reactions back home. David stood outside his temporary shelter, the communicator in his hand casting a stark light on his face. Ilyara approached, sensing his distress. "David, what has happened?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "It's from Earth. They want me back now. There's a lot of pressure from the international community about my findings and presence here," David explained, his voice tinged with frustration. Michael joined them, overhearing the conversation. "Are they pulling the plug on the entire mission? Just when we're making real progress?" "It seems like it. They're worried about the implications of my staying here longer. Political, ethical, you name it," David replied, his heart heavy. Ilyara looked from David to Michael, her expression calm yet firm. "This mission has always been bigger than any of us. David, whatever your choice, it will be respected here. But know that what you have started cannot be undone. The connection between our worlds is now known." David nodded, appreciating her understanding. "I know, and I wish there was a way to balance both worlds. I don't want to leave. Not now, not like this." Michael clapped a hand on David's shoulder. "Let's think this through. There's always a way to negotiate or extend things. Maybe we can argue for the need for a more thorough investigation. It's worth a try." The three of them sat down to discuss their options. David contacted his superiors, pleading for more time to ensure that the cultural and scientific exchange continued beneficially. He emphasized the peaceful nature of their interactions and the potential for future cooperation. As David argued his case over the communicator, Ilyara and Michael prepared a detailed report of all their findings, hoping it would bolster David's request. Hours passed, the sun climbing high and then beginning to descend as they awaited a response. Finally, the communicator buzzed. David answered, his expression one of tense anticipation. Listening intently, David's face slowly changed, the tension easing into relief. He turned to Ilyara and Michael, a smile breaking over his face. They've agreed to a temporary extension. We have 3 more months to consolidate our findings and prepare a comprehensive plan for continued interaction. Ilyara's eyes brightened, relief and joy evident. That's wonderful news. It gives us more time to learn from each other. Michael whooped, his relief audible. That's more like it. Let's make the most of every moment, then. The rest of the day was spent in renewed vigor as they planned the weeks ahead. The evening found them at the Vale of Shadows again, now a place of special significance for David and Ilyara. As they walked through the twilight, Ilyara spoke. "David, these stars under which we've shared so much, they remind us of the possibilities that lie in the cosmos, possibilities we have only just begun to explore." David took her hand, his decision reinforced by her words. "This is just the beginning, Ilyara. No matter what happens next, I'm grateful for every moment here with you." They stood together, looking up at the stars, the future uncertain but promising, ready to face whatever challenges might come with the same courage and hope that had brought them this far. The night air was cool and comforting as they made their way back, the landscape a familiar path that felt like home. Chapter 8. A Promise Under the Stars. As the 3-month extension neared its end, David found himself standing at a crossroads. The morning was quiet, the village still asleep except for him. He wandered through the paths between the alien homes, each step resonant with the weight of the impending decision. Michael found him gazing out over the fields, the first light of dawn casting long shadows. "You're up early," Michael observed, joining him. "Yeah, just thinking about everything." "It's almost time to go back," David replied, his voice tinged with reluctance. "You know, you could stay," Michael suggested. "It's clear how much you and Ilyara mean to each other, and the work we're doing here. It's important." David sighed. "I've been thinking about that. It's not just about what I want anymore. There's so much at stake." As they talked, Ilyara approached, having sensed David's presence. "Good morning. I thought I might find you here," she said, her eyes meeting David's. "Morning, Ilyara." "We were just talking about the future," Michael said, giving them a moment before excusing himself. Ilyara turned to David, her expression serious. "Have you made your decision?" David looked out over the landscape, the beauty of the planet stark against the complexity of his emotions. "I want to stay," he confessed. "But it's not just about staying. It's about finding a way to bridge our worlds, to continue what we've started." Ilyara reached out, taking his hand. "And you will. We will, together. Whatever you decide, know that this, us, it doesn't end here." "I know. And I'm not ready to end it. Not now, not when there's still so much we can do together," David affirmed, his decision firming. They spent the day with Michael, finalizing their reports and documenting their recommendations for future exchanges. The work was meticulous but fulfilling, each entry a testament to the time spent and the bonds formed. As night fell, the 3 of them climbed to the highest point in the village, a wide plateau that offered an unobstructed view of the heavens. The stars blazed above them, a tapestry of light against the dark. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Michael remarked, his gaze upward. "Makes you realize how small our problems are in the grand scheme of things." David and Ilyara nodded, their hands intertwined. "It does. And it makes me hopeful for the future," David said. Ilyara smiled, squeezing his hand. "Let's make a promise, here under these stars. A promise to keep looking up, to keep reaching out, and to keep building the path between our worlds." "It's a promise," David agreed. "And I'll be back, you know," Michael chimed in, "not just for the science, but because this place, you people, you've become like family." The night deepened around them, but the warmth between them was palpable, their shared commitment lighting the way forward. "Then let's not say goodbye, but until next time," Ilyara suggested, her voice steady and sure. "Until next time," David echoed, his heart full. They stayed there for hours, talking, planning, and dreaming under the celestial canopy. When they finally descended, it was with a sense of peace and purpose. The challenges ahead were daunting, but the promise made under the starlit sky was a strong, guiding light. As David prepared for his journey back to Earth the next day, his thoughts were not of farewells but of the reunions to come. The planet had become more than a mission, it had become a part of him, just as he had become a part of it. And with Ilyara by his side, even worlds apart, he was never truly alone. The story of their love and collaboration, begun beneath starlit paths, was just beginning.